Okay, so we're focusing on helping leaders build a healthy, growing, profitable business that isn't dependent on the owner to make a positive impact. And specifically today, we're talking about reducing owner dependency. Where I'd like to jump in with y'all is let's talk about the things that get in the way of someone reducing owner dependency. Because I think all three of us could say we have seen leaders, and maybe we've even been in this position before, where we say, I don't want this thing to all be dependent on me. I don't want to be the bottleneck. But sometimes our actions don't actually align with that stated desire or goal. And it's almost like we experience these blockers, could be the right word, or almost like resistance. It's like you have to swim upstream against some very natural tendencies if you're going to achieve that goal. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of highlight, man, what is the resistance that you're going to have to overcome, if you're going to reduce owner dependency. So we created a greatest hits list. Who wants to go first? Kylie's pointing at you.
I've got to go first. Yeah, one of the ones that I'll highlight here is insecurity of the CEO actually stepping into that role.
So stepping in, so insecurity of the person that has the title of CEO, but stepping into what a CEO actually does.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying, Matt? Agreed? Disagreed?
Yeah, and maybe it's a subset of this, but like envisioning the CEO role, it being a role full of gainers, not drainers. Like they're stepping into something that's actually going to be fun, fruitful, effective, profitable. It's hard to catch that vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about what a CEO role actually is. When y'all kind of hear the idea of, man, this is what a CEO is actually supposed to be focused on. Not necessarily what every CEO is focused on right now, but man, if we're going to pay a CEO to lead this business, these are the critical results that they need to be attending to. What stands out to y'all?
Number one is vision.
Yeah.
Where is the organization going? Vision, that's vision as far as where the company will be mid to long term, but also vision for what is the structure of the organization? What are who are the key leaders that I'm either coaching up, calling up, training up? What is vision of my role and how it relates to another one of the core responsibilities of financial health and profitability? But I mean, vision is number one. Where are we going?
Yeah, and I think associated with that, I always think about that SWOT exercise, right, of strengths, weaknesses. Sure, they should be attending to that maybe as a function of resource allocation, but really opportunities and threats. The CEO is really charged with, keeping their eye. They don't have to individually think of all of the possible opportunities and threats, but they need to have it like, man, part of my time, energy is dedicated towards seizing opportunities and minimizing the risk associated with threats. Excellent. Okay, what else kind of falls under that umbrella of the CEO role?
Yeah, another one would be culture.
Yeah.
Like, what are the things that why does the organization exist? What do we stand for? And really focusing on not even just yourself bringing in those right people, but setting that standard for who are we, what are the things that we're going to fight for, what are the things that we're going to hold on to and stand for, and then making sure that the culture embodies that.
Okay, let's talk about this. I honestly, I've seen this occur in dirt world companies after they get to a certain size, that I've seen CEOs start to say, oh, culture is a function of HR. Agree, disagree? What are your thoughts there?
Strong disagree.
Okay.
Hard no.
Matt has strong opinions?
What?
This is new to me.
I mean, I think I have the most experience here with the largest company. I was a part of an employer that had, 5-digit number of employees, and, HR is not ensuring that it's people like us doing things the way we do things. HR is managing, the employee handbook and they're the ones who are responsible for, offboarding and managing risk during offboarding.
Healthcare.
Yeah, healthcare is another good. It's not that it's a bad function, but it's not the function of a healthy, vibrant organization filled with people who are excited to show up, aligned with our mission and core values, but rather an administrative function for stuff that oftentimes people don't want to deal with.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's part of the issue is people think that culture equals benefits. And that's not what culture actually is. So now let me ask y'all this. When you think of the CEOs that y'all have worked with, that you're like, man, they are owning the responsibility associated with the cultural health and vitality of the organization, what are the things that they're doing? Like, what are they doing that looks like them owning that result for the organization?
Yeah, I think the people that I see own the culture part of the CEO role are, first of all, they're just clarifying it. And I think every organization has a culture.
That's right.
And the best CEOs are able to simplify that in a way that is documented, is clear, is portable. And then the second part of that is then hold the standard and really lead and model the standard of what it means to exist within that culture.
Yeah. I mean, there was almost a couple things kind of wrapped into like model it. We're not looking for perfection from the CEO as the poster child of the culture, but man, we sure are looking for commitment, right? And you should look like the core values of your organization if they're truly the values of your organization. But then I also think what you said is important of like, this is where if you want to be an effective leader, it's really going to help you to become an effective teacher. And part of effective teaching is not just giving information, it's giving information in a fresh, new, and engaging way. I think a lot of people think I need to constantly have fresh content or ideas to teach our large team in order to keep us moving forward. And in reality, some of the best CEOs I know, they say the same simple things over and over and over again in new, fresh, and engaging ways, especially if you have a growing organization, because it's like, yeah, some of these people have been here for 10 years and they've heard you do the culture talk, 150 times. But then at the same time, you got someone that has never heard you talk about one particular core values or one of your core values for an extended period of time. And it's like, we can't just orient around the veterans, because if we do that, our culture is going to drift. It's going to leak. It's going to become less of what it should be. So I think there's an education component, also a modeling component. Anything else stand out to you?
Yeah, I would say maybe a discipleship component. We'll talk about leadership team here in a minute, but it's your job not to just define it. What I like to use the analogy of air war, right? Define it for the organization, make sure there's clarity, there's something documented, written down, there's some stories around it. But then depending on the size of your organization, you're not going to be the primary person that's on the front line in the trenches, seeing and coaching your frontline revenue generating workers. And so part of this aspect of building a healthy culture is discipling people in your culture, leaders who are going to be able to be present on the front lines, in the trenches, in situations where these core values actually matter. Core values are not leadership tools, as in the sense of only for leaders. They're tools for ensuring that the way we do things is in alignment with what we stand for, our non-negotiables.
That's exactly right. And so, okay, so we've talked about the CEO role being vision, being culture. You've kind of hit on the fact that profitability of the business, you could, depending on stage of business, you could also say enterprise value of the business. And then the leadership team being led, managed, and held accountable. And obviously enveloped in that result is the idea that you have a leadership team that is filled with leaders. So that's the CEO role. That is what the results that you need to own if you're going to play the role of CEO. Now, what you said is the thing that prevents people from doing that also prevents them from creating an organization that isn't owner dependent, is you said it's insecurity. Why do you say insecurity there?
Yeah. Oftentimes, in my experience, CEOs are often the business owner. And so they start a business. They're the key revenue generator. They're the ones that hold the keys to all of the strategic relationships, and they're the one that's doing the thing. And as you continue to do the thing and get better at the thing, you grow the business. And then eventually you come to a point where it's like, I am now the lid of the organization, and I need to now hire people under me to continue to do this. But this is the thing I'm really good at, and I don't know how to do that thing. I don't have a vision. I don't have clarity for what a CEO actually does. Because even some of the things that we're talking about with vision, culture, financial understanding, strategic relationships, they could maybe articulate that those things are important, but then it's like, I don't even know where to begin.
That's right.
In how to do that, but I do know how to serve the customer really well.
That's right. So this kind of highlights a really good distinction in the goal that we've laid out that's really important. So again, what is the goal? It's to build a healthy, growing, profitable business that isn't dependent on the owner to make a positive impact. Well, now we're saying if the owner's the CEO, then that owner as CEO is responsible for vision, culture, profitability of the business, the leadership team being led, managed, and held accountable. Now, for a business to be healthy, growing, and profitable sustainably over time, someone is going to have to play the CEO role, right? Yep. And what we're talking about right now is the owner is saying, I'm going to fill that seat. But I think the distinction that we're really talking about here is you have to make it into a seat. And I think what a lot of owners do is they kind of do this chief everything officer thing where they do a little bit of everything in a somewhat unpredictable and certainly not operationalized way. And then as a result, if they ever even wanted to hire a CEO, they wouldn't be able to because there's no way to reproduce what they're doing in the organization. And so I think what we're talking about is you have to, if you're ever going to have a CEO role, you have to define what that role is. And then maybe you're hiring yourself for that role. But if you ever want to be non-owner dependent, you have to think of it as a role. Does that feel correct?
Yep, 100%.
Anything you would add to that or related to the topic of insecurity?
I think it's one of my favorite coaching questions. What would you pay a CEO to do if you weren't sitting in that seat? And so often, the things that people are doing that's probably contributing to that insecurity, or at times that is contributing to that insecurity, are things that you would never pay someone to do. And so then you're going to ask the question, okay, do you have the courage to step in and do the things that you'd pay someone to do?
That's
or
right.
that to stop doing the things that you would not pay someone to do?
When someone's talking to us about doing one-on-one coaching, it's wild how fast. I mean, sometimes before they're even in coaching, in the sales process, we start going down this line of thinking. And one of the inevitable, common sense recognitions is, okay, if I want to have a healthy, growing, profitable business sustainably over time, I'm going to need someone to play the CEO role. And then they learn more about what the CEO role is, and they immediately start saying, I don't know if I want to do that, which I actually think can be one of the greatest steps towards you creating a healthy, growing, profitable business, instead of you just living in this gray area of kind of doing with mediocrity the thing that's going to be absolutely essential to do with excellence if you're going to create a strong business.
Yeah. I see it all the time when we start doing coaching. One of the parts of the intensive is in the first intensive, and the first time we ever get together, we write role success statements for the CEO if they're playing that role, which most of the time they are playing that role. And then oftentimes the first time we evaluate those success statements, it's red. And which means they're not doing that role.
Yeah.
And it is amazing time after time in that moment. That is really the light bulb moment for them of like, oh, I actually don't feel shame in this moment. This is just communicating very visibly what I've known in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have to say, okay, well, those are the things you like a CEO should be doing.
Yeah.
Are those the things that you think you should be doing? And if so, now the work is saying, what are all the other things that we're doing? And how do we begin to, in a really effective way, offload those things? That could be through operationalizing or other fundamentals or through delegation. But really, that is the moment where they see it and they're like, oh yeah, this is the work of coaching now, to move those to green, which then requires so many other tools and structures for the organization.
I think it's one of the reasons why, we hear the language, and we even use the language, like you want to own a business, you don't want to own a job. I think that can be convoluted very quickly because what's really being said there is we want you to be focused on strategic work of thinking about this business as an asset, not just doing the thing, the X's and O's that keep the lights on, right? That's what's being communicated there. I think the thing that is unfortunate about that statement is people think that like, oh, if I'm the business owner, that means I don't have a job. And it's like, well, if you are hiring yourself to be the CEO, like who's going to be the CEO of this business? And maybe that person should have a job. But if that person is you like very much have a job, and that job gets paid a lot of money to do specific things. And so, yeah, it's kind of wild how we start that we've created a culture, and not we as in Path for Growth, but just generally leadership, business, literature, lexicon, all of that has created this culture where we think, oh, you're the CEO, so you don't have a job. It's like, no, like you've got a really, really important job, and we need to keep that in mind. Okay, it's related to insecurity, so here's what I'd like to jump next is something that gets in the way of reducing owner dependency, I think, is ego. And this was on the front of my mind this morning because this is a kind of funny example, and she said it in a funny way too. But you know, y'all were up here. We had one of our customers up here this morning. Ben on our team was up here this morning as well. And Kyle, I think it was you that asked for the Wi-Fi password. And you know, Aspen, she is gifted in many ways. One of her ways that she's gifted is like memorizing just crazy things, like insane things. One of them being this like absurd Wi-Fi password. And so she gave it to you. And I just said, that's crazy that you remember that. And she's like, you know, she said this. She said, you know, it would probably be a really good idea for me to like print out something and put that in your office since you're having people over here oftentimes so that they can access the Wi-Fi. And then she said something really funny. She kind of chuckled and she said, but it is also really nice to be needed. And I was like, bingo, right there. I said, that is exactly what gets in the way of people reducing owner dependency is we even consciously know, like, it would probably be a good idea for me to write down how I do this or for me to take what's in my head and put it on paper. But it's just so nice to be needed. You know, and Aspen said it as a joke, but the way that it often plays out in the CEO role, I think a lot of times isn't a joke. Thoughts there and how that applies to ego?
Man, our hearts and our minds are so deceptive. Like, this is what we want, right? It's there's pride associated with what we do, and pride in a good sense. Like, I'm really good at XYZ. I'm good at serving the customer. I'm good at making a spreadsheet. Man, Claude is, by the way, taking away a lot of my pride. Claude might be better at
it. It is better than you.
But the reality is I've got to make a decision. I've got to make a decision. Do I want to grow, or do I want to live in comfort? Right? Do I want to let my ego, that voice in the back of my head, that maybe that dopamine that's saying, yeah, like it's so good to be able to do this. Do I want to let that voice reign out? Or win out, or do I want to grow? And so many people come to us and they say, I want to grow. And then what do we have to do? We have to hold up a mirror and say, well, the person preventing you from growing is that voice inside your head, that pride, that ego that says, I want to be needed. I want to be valued. And they don't, and what do they need? They need a vision for being needed and valued on the other side of delegating or giving up a task.
Yeah, that's really good. I've heard it said before that like ego, EGO, edging God out. And it's like this idea of like God is doing a thing. And oftentimes the thing that gets in the way is me, myself, and I, right? And I think associated too with God doing a thing, the thing that I see the most impact-oriented leaders know is that thing isn't actually dependent on me. They're keenly aware of that. And also my value doesn't come from my sweat being tied to that thing, right? Like sweat and value don't go hand in hand. And I think the most humble, wise, mature leaders I know have learned that lesson over time. I guess my question for y'all would be, like, the ego is just like this raging force, right? And we can even, it's kind of like that Paul verse is like, I do the thing I don't want to do. I don't do the thing that I want to do. We can even know conceptually, like, man, there's a lot of me that's getting in the way of this happening. When you see people grow out of that and start to be shaped into a more humble leader, a more wise leader, a more measured leader, a more patient leader, what are the actions that cause that? Like, what creates that transformation from y'all's perspective?
I may not answer exactly on actions, but when you were talking about this, I think I I think the actions flow from a new vision. And what I mean by that is, as you guys were talking, parenting is really what stuck out to me is like, it's good to be needed as a dad. But that's not my responsibility. If my responsibility was just to provide everything for my children when they need it, I'm not creating an independent. I'm keeping a baby and not creating a boy into a man.
That's so good.
And if I have a vision for how do I take a boy and turn him into a man, I am going to parent very differently than keeping a boy. And so I think it's just, what is the vision for me and my responsibility and my stewardship within the organization? And if it is to be the bottleneck and the main contributor, that's not even a bad thing to want to be needed. You just need to make that decision. And then there's other ramifications and trade-offs for that decision. You also need someone looking at other things. And if you want to be looking at those things, then you can't be needed in these areas. And so I would say first step is getting a greater vision for what is my responsibility within the organization. And then out of that, I do think that changes the conversation and the actions, because I am still needed. You are definitely needed at Path for Growth, but the need is in a different way than you executing on all the coaching or being there for every question. It's a different need that is taking us to different places.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. I wasn't really thinking about this until what you said right there is like, we have a community coaching call 3 times a week right now, and called Office Hours, and a combination of you two and Olivia, our coaching team, runs those calls. I cannot remember the last time that I ran an Office Hours call, and it's actually been quite a while since I've been on those Office Hours calls. But attendance, value, engagement, like actually, it could be said that in the season we're in right now, Office Hours is as vibrant as it's ever been in some ways. And I can sometimes think to myself, I really need to get on there, because people are going to start thinking that I'm not working enough or stuff like that. And it's like, that is, it's like, your motive for doing things should never be, what are other people thinking about what I'm doing? Right now, you're rooting in like the approval or perspective of other people. And that's going to be a really poor leadership strategy. But also, the things that I actually do that are most valuable for the organization right now are oftentimes less public than something like Office Hours. And there's a level of confidence that comes from just knowing, like, people might not see this stuff, and people might not know, like, some of the things that are more public. They might know some of the things that I have to do personally behind the scenes to make those public things happen. And I think it's an area where I've really had to grow as a leader, is learning they don't have to see everything for it to be valuable. And I need to have confidence in what is valuable in my role for the organization, which I think hits on ego, also hits on insecurity.
Yeah.
Matt, what was one of the blockers to reducing owner dependency that you were down?
Yeah, competency and delegation.
Yeah. Yes, agreed. Okay, so let's treat it this way. If there is one thing that you've learned about delegation that you just wish everyone listening to this could get, let's each think of one. What's one thing that you want people to get?
Delegation is an act of service. It's an act of service not only to yourself, because it's helping you get from where you are to where you want to be. It's an act of service to your customers, because you have limited capacity, and there are customers who hopefully have a problem that you're really good at solving. And so, it's serving more customers by training others and by delegating some of the responsibilities to them. But it's also a service to the employee. Man, I am so thankful for the leaders in my life who have delegated things well to me. I am the man I am today. I'm the leader, the worker I am today, because someone asked me to do something that maybe I didn't know fully how to do yet, or that I knew how to do, but no one had ever put the trust in me to go do.
That's so good. Kyle, what's yours?
I want to make sure you get credit for this quote. You're not that special.
Thank you. To be clear, I was talking about you. I was not talking about me there.
Everybody listening, you're not that special. Alex Judd. And I want to like actually be kind in the way that I say that, even though it is true, in the sense of some of the greatest growth moments that happen in coaching relationships are when our customers do buy into that belief or borrow that belief of like, yeah, someone else can do it. And the good thing is, so many of our customers and so many of the people listening to this podcast often come here because of Alex. And it's like, oh man, like I want Alex coaching me, or I wanted to talk to Alex, and you had the humility and you did the hard work of like putting on paper the outcomes that you wanted, the way in which you did it, the skills needed. And now we have reproduced that in our organization, which gives us the authority to talk about this with our customers, but also our customers get to see it. Like, I'm receiving value from Matt. I really like Alex. He's super smart. I love his energy, but Kyle can provide like what I need to help me get to where I'm going. And the biggest growth is oftentimes huge amounts of growth happens when a customer can see that vision in our organization, can borrow some belief that can happen in their organization, and do the work of like putting those things on paper, empowering their team to go get those outcomes, not all the tasks, the outcomes, and then just watching those people rise up and fulfill that thing. And not only watching them rise up, you see their eyes light up of like, oh, I now have the opportunity to do that. And people take so much more ownership than I think owners give their people credit for. And when you just give people outcomes, you show them the path, the proven path for how to do it, they rise up, and there's so much that can happen in those moments.
Yeah. It's kind of wild. I feel like one of my biggest lessons in delegation came from a place that I would have never expected it, and it's with guest speakers, like not even internal team speakers, but guest speakers at our experiences. And the reason why it's kind of wild is because, you know, the guest speakers that we bring in general, like as a theme, they have insane amounts of business experience. They're wildly effective leaders, right? They're oftentimes great communicators, but they are stylistically different than me and our team. And that's actually one of the things that I love about them. And that's one of the reasons why we're bringing them to the experiences, because I want to hear from their perspective. I don't just want to hear more path for growth. I want to hear from their perspective. And my 3, 2, even 1 year ago approach to guest speakers at an experience would be, I need to be involved in the how they're creating their message, what their message is going to be about, what are the stories that they're going to tell. And the whole time, I always thought I was helping them. Right. And also guarding the value that our brand had created and guarding the product. It's like, what I have learned is, do you believe in the person you selected and that they're incredibly capable, wildly thoughtful, and excellent at what they do? The answer is yes. And then, do you have clear vision on what you want their 60 minutes to accomplish? The answer previously has been no. Now the answer is yes. Can you put that vision on paper? Now I've started doing that. And what's crazy is those people, I think I hesitated to do that sometimes because I would be like, who am I to give this person vision? I just had calls last week with every single one of our guest speakers, and I gave them a document. That document had success statements. It had a couple of tips of things that I do to get ready. It had very, very clear criteria on what deadlines were for slides and workbooks and things like that. And all of them asked, like, because some of them have spoken with us before, they said, do you want to be involved in the process? Like, what would you like to do? And I told them, I want to do nothing from now until the experience. And I said, I just want to show up and hear your talk. I trust you. I think it's going to be awesome. And it was so fun to hear, in some cases, 65-year-old men tell me, I'm so excited about this. This is going to be amazing. And it's like, oh, so that's what, I think step one of delegation is you have to find great people. And a lot of times people think they're bad at delegating, and in reality, you just haven't found great people. But if you have great people, take the time to provide clarity and then get out of the way and let them be there themselves. And then also don't manage people according to your preferences.
Bingo.
That was an aggressive nod.
I was going to ask you, like, talk about preferences a little bit, because I know you've talked about that with us teaching, but also us coaching, of like, the three of us are very, very different.
That's right.
The way that we look at things, the way that we approach things, the way that we communicate things. And as you've delegated responsibility in both coaching and teaching, which are things that those are the main avenues in which we deliver on our mission and the value of the organization. How do you manage preference over outcome?
Get clear on outcomes is what I would say. And then, like, remind yourself, this is what I actually care about. And those outcomes should be oriented to like the actual success of the business. And then hold your preferences with an incredibly loose grip and be able to name what's preferences. It used to be that I couldn't watch coaching call recordings because I would be filled with all this stress of I wouldn't do it that way. And that would create me into like, I don't feel like I should say every piece of feedback, but also now I have to sit with all this feedback. Now I've got such a track record that I've seen that like there are still just as many things that are done in a different way, but y'all achieve the outcomes oftentimes in ways that are better long term than the way that I did it. And so I've learned, my preferences are just that. They are preferences, and maybe they're right for my personality style, but that doesn't mean that it fits y'all. So distinguish between outcomes and preferences. Okay, so we've got ego gets in the way, we've got insecurity with the CEO role, and we've got competency and delegation. Those are, we could list 20 more blockers to reducing owner dependency, and maybe we will one day, but I think that's a great place to park it right here. Thanks so much, guys.
Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. If you want more content like this, we've got some killer stuff planned. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. Let's go, let's go, let's go.